I never could sing like some of the top artists who inspired me. Dinah Washington, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald. But you know what? They could not sing like me either. What I had was my own. Today, I'm free of the fears of my youth and settled in the assurance that comes only from surviving. And Mahalia's words have echoed throughout my life. You are in God's service. I just love that story. It provides a great example of what being authentic is all about, doesn't it? And what a great fit for today's topic, authentic leadership. Now, remember I said that earlier, authentic means really being true to who you are. It's all about being yourself. Now, it's been said, in a world where you can be anything, be yourself. So I know some of you are asking, how does that work? I mean, it's not always easy to be yourself. In fact, for some of you, I know that being yourself is easier said than done. I hear you. I once taught in a graduate program where the entire focus of that program was helping my grad students become comfortable with being themselves. This was a program that equipped them to work in what we lovingly call the helping professions. So when they graduated, they would become consultants, therapists, nurses, educators, attorneys, assuming some kind of leadership role in their organization or community. Now, I know firsthand that being yourself can be quite challenging. Think about it. So many of us focus on pleasing other people. In the process, we can easily lose track of who we are along the way. Now, that's a pretty steep price to pay. Fortunately, there are many ways to get back on track with being who you are meant to be and to discover your strengths as well as your growing edges. You can begin by asking yourself a few questions. Ask yourself, what's unique about me? What's unique about me? What makes me so special, right? Another question to ask is, what are my top 3 strengths? Another question, what do I enjoy doing so much that I lose all track of time? What do I enjoy doing so much that I lose track of time? How about this question? What do I enjoy so much I would do it for free? And another question to ask is, what am I curious about? Now, any one of those questions can help you figure out who you are, really. Who you are at the core. What is your authentic self, right? Now, these questions are important. They are designed to help you reconnect with what's meaningful to you and to help you reconnect with who you are, to fully claim your glorious self, your magnificence. Now, there are a few critical skills that we all need, skills that will support you in truly being yourself, not only as a leader, but in all other realms of your life. What are those skills? Well, there are 4 of them. 4 that I want to shed the light on today. And these are essential. Now, I actually write about these skills in one of my books. It's called Flawless Leadership, Connecting Who You Are with What You Know and Do. So here are the 4 skills. The first one is self-awareness. That's right, that's a skill. Self-awareness. The second one is openness. The next one, transparency and curiosity. Now let's start with self-awareness. Being yourself actually begins here, okay? It begins with self-awareness, the conscious knowledge of your own desires, feelings, motives, thoughts, and traits. This skill also includes the capacity for introspection, for looking inward, in other words, and the capacity for reflection. Okay? Now, this skill of self-awareness is vital to your ability to ignite, influence, and inspire others. When you are self-aware, you will be better equipped to embrace, reflect on, and use your unique strengths, talents, and gifts. You will be able to recognize what drives you and what gives you energy, focus, and purpose. You will also be able to develop and clearly communicate your vision. Right? Now, why is this important? Because you will be able to inspire your team or your organization to take meaningful action. Now, this is essential whether you are leading at work or in your family. The next skill is openness. Now, this skill is often misunderstood because we confuse openness with self-disclosure. Openness simply means being able to internally recognize, being able to freely access, and then being able to appropriately express your feelings and thoughts without being defensive. Right? Now, this sounds pretty straightforward. I'm going to repeat those things again. Openness simply means being able to internally recognize, freely access, and appropriately express your feelings and thoughts without being defensive. Pretty simple, right? However, demonstrating this skill in the moment can be quite challenging. In fact, it can be downright difficult. Why? Because when we're triggered by someone or something and we don't realize it, we can easily respond inappropriately and defensively, right? In that split second, in that nanosecond, right? We become temporarily immobilized. We actually freeze, which impairs our ability to internally recognize, freely access, and appropriately express our feelings and thoughts without being defensive. We've all been there, right? The key is to develop your ability to self-regulate so that when you're emotionally triggered by something or someone, you can consciously manage your own reactivity. This is one of the many aspects of what we call emotional intelligence. Now, the third skill is transparency. Transparency allows leaders to make information that is normally selective, normally seen by only a few people. These leaders allow that kind of information, that selective, information, to be available to all as appropriate. An example is providing insight into a leader's decision-making process. Providing such insight can be very helpful during times of change and transition. And we're always going through some kind of change or transition, right? I remember in one company I worked for, the staff learned that we were going to be bought out. We were going to be acquired by a rival company. Now, the staff were intensely loyal to this organization that we worked for, right? Including me. And not surprisingly, when we heard the news about being bought out by another company, we were all just kind of wobbly, right? Shaken to the core. It seemed as though we were being taken off guard, blindsided, right? As if no one had seen this coming. However, the really senior staff had seen it coming, even though they couldn't reveal the specifics until after the buyout, after the acquisition was complete. Now, many of us have heard something like this. Information is the solar energy of an organization. In other words, even a little bit of transparency will go a long way. Now, the need for transparency has never been greater in our organizations and communities and families. In fact, as old, outworn, containing structures and systems and hierarchies continue to dissolve, and as our organizations and communities struggle to survive, leaders must be equipped to fill the void. In a world, what we call a VUCA world, V-U-C-A, right, where volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and chaos are becoming the norm, such leaders will be equipped to support their organizations, their communities, and their families to adapt, innovate, and flourish. Now, that fourth skill, curiosity, let's talk about that. Leaders who are curious are inquisitive, avid learners, learners who desire to learn or know more. They actively and vigorously cultivate and nurture and leverage the skill of curiosity. You know what? Even though we're naturally curious as children, as we grow older, we may not necessarily retain our curiosity. I remember as a little girl, my family moved from rural Mississippi to the inner city of Detroit, Michigan. And we lived in some pretty rough neighborhoods. Okay? Now, during the hot, humid summers, instead of playing outside with the other kids, I had to go to school. Unlike most kids who attend summer school because they flunked a course, I went to summer school because my dad said so. He actually mandated it. He was the headmaster, our house was the classroom, and my sister and I were his pupils. So every day, while our friends played outside our house, in the street, or in the yard, we completed our daily lessons. Now, we studied hard, me and my sisters, to pass the tests that Daddy gave us after dinner. During those Detroit summers and for years afterwards, I remember asking my dad about particular words or concepts that interested me. And without fail, Daddy always said, "Look it up. Look it up." Can I just tell you something? This is not what a young person wants to hear. But as a dutiful daughter, I always followed my father's advice. Now, was my dad being mean? Well, I admit, that's what I thought, though I had the good sense to keep it to myself. Right? So what was he doing? My dad was actually helping me cultivate an appetite for curiosity. He was instilling in me and my sisters the awareness, knowledge, skills, and resourcefulness for lifelong learning. And you know what? It worked. I became very good at being curious and quite skilled in satisfying my curiosity. In fact, I became a voracious learner. The more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. And the more curious I became. Now, as a visual learner, I was very good at memorizing words and their definitions. I was fascinated to learn that some writers had a knack for arranging words in such a way that their work just came alive. It just kind of leaped up off the page, right? While other writers were just downright dull and boring. Although I didn't realize it at the time, I was actually learning about the writer's voice, about the writer's tone, and about the writer's style. Looking up words and other concepts stimulated my thinking, fueled my appetite for learning, and spurred my lifelong curiosity. Cultivating the skill of being curious also expanded my world far beyond the one I knew, the 6 square blocks of my neighborhood in East Detroit. Being curious along with other qualities of being, has opened so many doors and so many opportunities to